Hello, and welcome to Boring History for Sleep. Thank you for joining me here in this quiet space we have created, a space designed to let the noise of the modern world fade away and to allow the gentle, unhurried stories of the past to guide you toward rest. Tonight, we are embarking on a journey deeper into our collective memory than we often venture. We are traveling back to a time before written
This symbol
words,
shows the great
before
hunt
cities,
where our
before
ancestors
the
found
wheel,
the sacred spring.
a time when the world was vast, untamed, and humanity was still finding its footing. We are going to the Stone Age. The very name can conjure images of struggle and harshness, and in many ways that is true. But it was also a time of immense resilience, of profound connection to the natural world, and of a rhythm of life so fundamentally different from our own. Our journey tonight will be an exploration of that rhythm. We will begin by immersing ourselves in the daily existence of our earliest ancestors. Then we will consider a single pivotal moment in human development. From there, we will investigate the mysteries they left behind for us to find. And finally, we will contrast their world with the emergence of new ways of living as the long age of stone began to give way to what would come next. There is no need to follow every detail. Simply allow the story to wash over you. Let your mind drift where it will. The goal is not to study, but to settle. So, find a comfortable position. Feel the weight of your body sinking softly into your bed. Let your breathing slow, becoming deep and regular. And let us begin our journey back to the dawn of everything. Why you wouldn't last a day as a Stone Age hunter. Imagine yourself waking. There is no gentle alarm, no soft sunlight filtering through blinds. The first sensation is the cold, a deep, persistent cold that has crept into your bones through the night. It seeps through the layers of animal hide you are wrapped in, a constant reminder of the world's indifference. You are lying on a bed of packed earth, softened slightly by dried grasses and more furs within a crude shelter. Perhaps it is a lean-to against a rock outcropping, or a hut made of woven branches and mud. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth, of old wood smoke from the dying embers of the fire, and the close animal smell of the handful of other bodies sleeping nearby. Your family, your clan. The first imperative of the day is not breakfast, not hygiene, not planning. It is the fire. You can hear the soft, even breathing of the others. One person, tasked with keeping watch, is already awake, a silent silhouette against the gray pre-dawn light. But the central hearth, the very heart of your small community, has dwindled to a faint orange glow. Imagine the slow, deliberate movements. Pushing aside the heavy furs, your muscles ache with a familiar, deep-set weariness. There are no soft mattresses to cushion your joints, no ergonomic pillows. Every day leaves its mark upon the body, a ledger of past efforts and old injuries. A twisted ankle from a year ago still sends a dull throb up your leg on cold mornings. The shoulder that was dislocated during a hunt never quite regained its full range of motion. This is the normal state of being. You approach the hearth. The task is simple, yet vital. Gently you blow on the embers, your breath a small warm cloud in the frigid air. A tiny flicker responds. You add a handful of dry tinder, shredded bark, crushed leaves, saved meticulously from the last rain. You blow again, a longer, steadier breath. The flicker grows into a small, hungry flame. Carefully, you add twigs, then larger sticks, nursing the fire back to life.
As the flames grow, they push back the cold in the darkness. Shadows dance on the walls of the shelter. The warmth on your face is a primal comfort, a small victory against the vast, cold world outside. This fire is your shield. It provides warmth, it cooks your food, it hardens the tips of your wooden spears, and it keeps the things that hunt in the dark at bay. Its preservation is a non-negotiable duty. There is no pantry to raid, no refrigerator to open. Hunger is a constant companion, a dull ache in the belly that is sometimes satisfied, but rarely banished. Your breakfast, if there is one, might be a handful of dried berries, tough and chewy, or perhaps a strip of meat left over from the last successful hunt, preserved by smoke and cold. It is sustenance, not pleasure. It is fuel for the immense effort that the day will demand. Now, you must prepare. Today, you are a hunter. The group is low on fresh meat, and the telltale signs in the forest, the tracks, the scent on the wind, suggest that a herd of deer is moving through the valley. Your tools are not simply objects. They are extensions of your own body, crafted with a skill born of necessity and passed down through generations. Imagine picking up your spear. The shaft is wood, straightened painstakingly over a low fire, smoothed with a rough stone until it feels balanced and familiar in your hand. The point is a masterpiece of flint knapping, a single, sharp piece of stone chipped with meticulous precision to create a deadly leaf-shaped blade. It is bound to the shaft with sinew, the tough, fibrous tissue from an animal's leg, and sealed with pine resin. To create this one spear point may have taken hours of focused, difficult work. To lose it would be a catastrophe.
You might also carry a stone axe, its heavy head wedged into a wooden handle. Not a weapon for the hunt, but a tool for butchering, for chopping wood, for survival. A flint knife, small and sharp, is tucked into a leather pouch. Each tool is precious. Each one represents an enormous investment of time, energy, and knowledge. The sun is now cresting the horizon, casting long, pale shadows across the land. The other hunters are stirring. There is little talk, a shared glance, a nod. The plan is understood without words. You will follow the tracks, you will work together, and with luck, you will bring food back to the clan. Leaving the relative safety of the camp is a profound transition. The world outside the small circle of firelight is not empty. It is filled with other lives, other hunters, many of whom are stronger and faster than you. You must become part of the landscape, moving with a silence and awareness that modern humans have long since forgotten. Every sense is engaged. Your eyes don't just see the trees, they scan for movement, for the flick of an ear, for the subtle difference in color that might betray a hidden animal. They read the ground like a book, a broken twig, a patch of scuffed earth, the faint impression of a hoof in the damp soil. Each is a word in a complex story. You can tell how long ago the deer passed, which direction it was heading, perhaps even if it was moving with urgency. Your ears are attuned to the forest symphony. You can distinguish the rustle of a small rodent in the undergrowth from the heavier tread of something large. You can identify the warning call of a bird, which might signal a predator nearby or your prey. Your nose detects the faint, musky scent of the deer carried on the breeze. This tells you that you must stay downwind, a simple rule that is the difference between a meal and a day of wasted effort. The hunt is not a sprint. It is a slow, grinding marathon of endurance. You may walk for miles, for hours, in a state of heightened, silent alertness. Your body, conditioned by a lifetime of such effort, moves with a steady, ground-eating rhythm. But the discomforts are many. Thorns tear at your hide clothing and your skin. Biting insects raise welts. The sun beats down, or a sudden cold rain begins to fall, soaking you to the bone. Thirst becomes a pressing concern, and you drink only when you find a stream, cupping the cold, clear water in your hands. Hunger gnaws. After hours of tracking, you finally see them, a small herd of deer, grazing peacefully in a clearing a few hundred yards away. There is no rush of adrenaline, no shout of excitement. That would be fatal. Instead, an intense, cold focus descends. All the weariness, all the discomfort vanishes. Your body becomes a tool for a single purpose. You and your fellow hunters communicate with subtle hand signals, spreading out to approach from different angles, using the terrain for cover. The final approach is agonizingly slow. You crawl on your belly through the wet grass, your movements measured in inches. Every nerve is on fire. One misplaced step, one snapped twig, and the herd will bolt, vanishing into the forest in seconds. You are close now, so close you can see the gentle twitching movement of the deer's ears. You can see the steam of their breath in the cool air. You select your target, perhaps an older animal, slightly separated from the rest. Your heart is pounding, a drum in your chest, but your breathing is slow and controlled. You rise to a low crouch, the spear feeling like a part of your arm. A lifetime of practice, of throwing sticks and stones since you could walk, culminates in this single fluid motion. You do not aim in the modern sense. You feel the trajectory, an intuitive calculation of distance, wind, and movement. You throw. The spear flies true. It finds its mark. The animal stumbles and falls. The rest of the herd, in a panic of flashing tails and pounding hooves, explodes into motion and is gone. There is a moment of profound silence. There is no cheer of victory. You approach the fallen animal with a quiet, somber sense of respect. A life has been taken so that others may live. It is the fundamental, brutal, and sacred equation of existence. But the day's work is far from over. In fact, the most arduous part has just begun. The animal must be butchered. The flint knife is brought out, its sharp edge making quick, efficient work of the hide. Nothing will be wasted. The hide will be scraped and cured to make clothing, shelter, or cordage. The meat, the prize, is cut away in large sections. The organs, rich in nutrients, are carefully set aside. The bones will be taken back to camp to be cracked for their marrow, or fashioned into tools like needles and awls. The sinew will be dried to make strong thread for sewing and for binding tools. This process must be done quickly. The scent of the kill will travel on the wind, attracting other predators, wolves, cave lions, bears. Your small hunting party is vulnerable out here in the open. Once the animal is butchered, the immense task of carrying it back to camp begins. A grown deer is heavy. You and your companions shoulder the huge portions of meat and hide, a staggering burden. The journey back is a grim slog. The muscles in your back and legs burn with every step. The sun feels hotter now, the insect more vicious. Exhaustion settles in, deep and profound. But you cannot stop. You must get this precious, life-giving resource back to the safety of the camp. Imagine, finally, seeing the familiar plume of smoke from your camp's fire rising above the trees. A wave of relief so powerful it almost brings you to your knees, washes over you. You have done it. You have succeeded.
Your return is met not with loud celebration, but with a quiet, collective sigh of relief from the clan. The food is shared among everyone, the old, the young, those who gathered plants and roots, those who cared for the children. Survival is a communal effort. As dusk falls, the fire is built high. The smell of roasting meat now fills the air, a rich, savory scent that promises a full belly and a peaceful night. You eat until you were truly full, a rare and deeply satisfying feeling. The day ends as it began, by the fire. But now, it is a place of contentment. The elders might tell a story, a tale of the spirits, or of a great hunt from long ago. The children, their bellies full, fall asleep. You sit, staring into the dancing flames, every muscle in your body aching with a profound, bone-deep weariness. You have survived another day. You have walked the knife's edge of existence and have, for now, come out on the right side. As you finally crawl back into your furs, the cold no longer feels so threatening. Your body is exhausted, but your spirit is settled. You will sleep the deep, dreamless sleep of the truly tired, ready to face the rhythm of survival all over again when the cold wakes you at dawn. This was the reality. A constant, unyielding test of skill, knowledge, endurance, and luck. A life lived in intimate and often brutal conversation with the natural world.
Awakening in the Ice Age, your first prehistoric morning. Let us now leave our modern selves behind and step gently into that ancient world. Let us inhabit the body of one who belongs there, for whom this life is the only one ever known. Imagine you are awakening. It happens not in an instant, but as a slow, gradual surfacing from the deep, dreamless sleep of exhaustion. The first sense to return is not sight, for the darkness is absolute. It is the feeling of the cold, a profound, penetrating cold that seems to be the very essence of the world. It presses in from all sides, a constant physical presence that even the thick layers of bear and reindeer hide cannot fully repel. You are lying in a shallow depression on the floor of a cave, cushioned by a mattress of dried moss and grass, packed down by seasons of use. The ground beneath you is hard and unforgiving. Your body is a map of past efforts. A dull, familiar ache resides deep in your shoulders and lower back. An old joint injury throbs with the rhythm of the cold. This is not a sign of illness. It is simply the state of being. The air you draw into your lungs is still and heavy. It carries a complex record of your small world, the sharp mineral scent of the cave's limestone walls, the lingering, greasy smell of wood smoke and roasted meat from the night before, and the close animal warmth of the other bodies sleeping near you. You are huddled together with your kin, perhaps 7 or 8 others, a small cluster of life creating a shared pocket of warmth in the immense frozen dark. Your hearing, sharp and attuned, awakens next. You listen to the soft, even breathing of your family, noting the rhythms. You listen to the low moan of the wind as it curls around the mouth of the cave, a sound that tells you about the world outside. And you listen for the one sound that should be there, but isn't: the gentle crackle and hiss of the fire. The silence from the hearth is a silent alarm. Panic is a fire that consumes energy, a luxury you cannot afford. Instead, a calm, focused urgency straightens your limbs. You push aside the heavy, stiff furs, the movement sending a small cloud of your own warm breath into the frigid air. Your feet, already wrapped in soft hide liners, find the cold, dusty floor of the cave. You move without a sound, a lifetime of practice making you a shadow within the darkness. You kneel at the heart of the shelter, the circle of stones that contains the fire pit. You reach out a hand. The stones are cold. The bed of ash is almost entirely devoid of heat. It is a dangerous state, a small crisis that must be met before the day can truly begin. Beside the hearth is a pouch made from bladder, carefully sealed. Inside is your most precious resource, tinder, not mere grass, but the fluffy, downy seeds of a fireweed, collected meticulously during the brief summer and kept perfectly dry. You take a small, delicate pinch and place it in a hollow at the center of the old ashes. From another pouch, you retrieve your fire-making kit. 2 special stones. One is a shard of flint, its edge sharp. The other is a lump of iron pyrite. Holding the pyrite steady over the tinder, you strike it firmly with the edge of the flint. A small shower of brilliant yellow sparks leaps into the darkness and vanishes. You strike again, a sharp click, and more sparks. One lands on the tender fluff of the tinder. It does not flame. It begins to glow, a single tiny orange eye in the vast velvety black. You lower your face to the glow, your breath held, and then release it in a slow, controlled, gentle stream of air. The ember brightens. A thin, ghostly wisp of smoke rises, carrying a sharp, hopeful scent. The ember grows from the size of a pinhead to the size of a pea. You do not rush. You continue your steady, patient breath, feeding it life from your own lungs. Now you add the next stage of fuel, which is always ready. Tiny, hair-thin slivers of dry birch bark. You place them gently beside the growing ember. The smoke thickens, and then, with a soft whoosh, a tiny, wavering flame appears. It is a fragile, precious thing, and you shield it with your hands as you add the smallest, driest twigs, one by one. The flame strengthens, grows bolder. It licks at the twigs, and the darkness begins to retreat. Shadows, long and distorted, leap and dance across the cave walls, revealing the familiar contours of your home. You see the sleeping forms of your family, still cocooned in their furs. You see the blackened ceiling, stained with the soot of 1,000 fires. Hanging from bone pegs are tools, hide bags, and bundles of dried herbs. This cave is not just shelter. It is an archive, a home used by your people for generations. As the fire gains strength, its warmth begins to push back the profound cold. The light brings the world back into existence. Others begin to stir, woken not by sound, but by the return of light and the subtle shift in the air. An old woman rises, her movements stiff but sure. She gives you a slow nod of acknowledgement, a silent thanks for reviving the hearth of the clan. She moves to a recess in the cave wall where aurochs' horns are plugged with stone, keeping the contents safe from scavengers. She removes a piece of dried mammoth meat. It is dark, tough, and nutrient-dense. This is breakfast. There is no ceremony to it. You are given a piece, and you chew it slowly, your strong jaw working patiently. The flavor is rich, slightly smoky, and the fat provides a welcome rush of energy, a vital fuel for the day ahead. The morning inside the cave is a time of quiet activity. A man sits near the growing fire, not for warmth, but for light. He is examining the sinew lashings on his spear thrower, testing their strength. A young girl is given a piece of hide and a smooth, rounded stone, and she begins the laborious task of rubbing the hide to keep it supple. Everyone has a purpose. Everyone contributes to the constant, unending work of survival. After a long while, a pale gray light begins to dilute the darkness at the cave's entrance. The night is over. You walk to the mouth of the cave and look out. The air that greets you is so clean and cold it stings your throat. The world revealed is vast, stark, and beautiful in its own austere way. You stand on a ledge overlooking a wide frozen river valley. The landscape is a rolling expanse of brownish grass and frozen earth, what we would call the Mammoth Steppe. There are no dense forests, only scattered wind-stunted birches. In the immense distance, the horizon is dominated by the pale, blue-white gleam of a continental ice sheet, a permanent mountain range of ice. Your eyes are not looking for beauty. They are reading the morning's news. You scan the snowy patches on the ground below for tracks, the deep, round prints of a woolly rhino, the trail of a herd of wild horses, and closer to the cliffs you see them, the large padded tracks of a cave lion. It passed by in the deep of night. This is vital information. It tells you where the danger is. The small band gathers at the cave mouth, wrapped in furs, breath pluming. There are no words, but a conversation takes place through glances and small gestures. The lion tracks are noted. A hunter points south, away from the tracks, making a motion with his hands that mimics the antlers of a reindeer. The consensus is silent and immediate. Today, some will hunt reindeer. But meat is not the only need. The band is also low on other resources. Your first prehistoric morning is over. The fire is alive. The first meal has been eaten. The world has been assessed. The day's work is about to begin. And the first task for many is the patient search for the small gifts the frozen earth provides. While the hunters prepare for their long journey, your tasks for the day lie closer to home. You're not idle. Your contribution is just as vital to the survival of the band. The spoils of the hunt are infrequent and uncertain. The daily, reliable sustenance often comes from the patient, knowledgeable work of the gatherers. You will not be going far from the shelter of the cliffs. The lion tracks are a fresh and serious warning. So you and two others, an older woman and a young boy not yet of hunting age, will stay within sight of the cave's mouth, exploring the base of the rock face and the sheltered hollows nearby. Your primary tool is simple, yet effective. It is a digging stick, a stout branch, perhaps from a hardy birch tree, with one end sharpened to a point and then hardened by slowly turning it over the embers of a fire. This process makes the wood surprisingly tough, capable of breaking into the hard, frozen soil. You also carry a basket, not a basket of woven reeds, as we might imagine, for reeds are scarce in this landscape. Instead, it is crafted from woven strips of willow bark, collected in the warmer months from the trees that huddle in the most sheltered, damp parts of the valley. It is a lightweight but strong container, another piece of essential technology that required foresight and skill to create. The older one, her face a testament to a lifetime of seasons, leads the way. She does not walk aimlessly. She is heading to a specific patch of ground that she remembers from the previous year. Her mind is a living map, not just of places, but of resources. She knows this small south-facing slope gets just a little more sun. She knows that a certain low-growing plant with tough, serrated leaves stores its energy in a thick, starchy root deep beneath the frost line. To an untrained eye, the ground is a uniform expanse of dormant, brown vegetation. But she sees it differently. She recognizes the specific pattern of the dead leaves, the way the stalks have fallen. Here, she says, with a simple gesture, a point of her digging stick. The work begins. It is slow and arduous. You kneel on the cold ground, your knees protected by a pad of folded fur. You use the point of your digging stick to chip away at the frozen earth. It is like trying to dig into rock. Small frozen chunks of dirt break away. Your breath plumes with the effort. It is not a matter of simply digging a hole, but of carefully, painstakingly excavating. After many minutes of hard work, you have created a small crater in the earth. The older woman takes over, her experienced hands now using a flattened piece of shoulder blade bone, a scapula, as a small shovel to clear the loosened dirt. Deeper now, below the hardest layer of frost, the soil is dark and crumbly, and there you see it, the pale, lumpy shape of a root, thick as your wrist. It is not a smooth, clean carrot or potato. It is gnarled, covered in small rootlets and dirt. With great care you work around it, loosening the soil, trying not to break it. A broken piece is harder to extract. Finally, with a last bit of leverage from the digging stick, it comes free with a soft tearing sound from the earth. This single root is a victory. It is held up, examined, and then placed gently into the woven basket. It is heavy with starches and calories. Roasted slowly in the embers of the fire, it will become soft and sweet. It is good food. The three of you will spend the next hour working this small patch, and for all your effort, you will harvest perhaps 4 or 5 of these precious roots. Your search continues along the base of the cliffs. You are not just looking down, but up. The older woman points to a hardy, thorny bush growing in a crevice. On its branches, withered and freeze-dried, are a few remaining berries from last autumn. They look like tiny, hard, red pebbles. You know these are safe. You have been eating them since you were a child. The young boy, being smaller and more nimble, scrambles up the rock face to get them. He picks them carefully, one by one. There are not many, just a small handful, but they are intensely sweet and will be a welcome treat. They are placed in a small hide pouch, kept separate from the dirty roots. The search is constant. Every small detail of the environment is noted and assessed. You overturn a flat frozen stone. Beneath it, in the insulated space, a small colony of beetle grubs lies dormant. To a modern sensibility, this is repulsive. To you, it is a gift. The boy gathers them quickly. They are pure protein and fat, a rich, nutritious morsel. When toasted by the fire, they will have a nutty, savory flavor. Nothing is wasted, nothing is overlooked. You also gather other essentials. You find a patch of sphagnum moss, still green in a protected, damp spot. You gather it carefully. This moss is incredibly absorbent and has antiseptic properties. It is a prehistoric first aid kit used for dressing wounds. It will also serve as soft, absorbent lining for a baby's swaddling. The older woman finds what she has been looking for, a type of bracket fungus growing like a woody shelf on the trunk of a dead birch tree. This is not for eating. She uses a stone tool to carefully slice it off. This fungus, what we would call a tinder fungus or amadou, is one of the most reliable materials for catching a spark. It will be brought back to the cave, dried slowly by the fire, and then saved, ensuring the band will always have a way to bring forth flame. Your gathering is a slow, methodical process. It is a conversation with the land. It requires an encyclopedic knowledge of botany, of animal habits, of the landscape itself. A knowledge with no books, no writing, stored only in the memory of the people and passed down through demonstration and story. After a few hours, the sun is as high in the sky as it will get. It offers little warmth. Your basket is not full, but it is heavy with the rewards of your labor. A few precious, energy-rich roots, a handful of sweet, dried berries, a small pouch of protein-rich grubs, a bundle of life-saving moss, and a piece of future fire. It is not a bounty, but it is enough. It is the crucial buffer against the uncertainties of the hunt. You turn back toward the dark, welcoming mouth of the cave, your morning's work complete. The hunters may or may not be successful, but because of you, the band will eat tonight. The hunt begins, tracking ancient herds. Let us now leave the relative safety of the cave and join the hunters. Their journey is a very different one, a venture into the vast, open spaces of the mammoth steppe. There are 4 of them, a seasoned leader, perhaps the father of the young man you saw napping flint by the fire this morning. The flint napper himself, his hands as skilled with a spear as they are with a hammerstone, and 2 other men in their prime, all lean muscle and deep endurance. Their preparations were minimal, but essential. Each man carries his primary weapon, a long, straight spear tipped with a deadly leaf-shaped point of flint. Tucked into their belts of hide are smaller, razor-sharp flint knives for the work that comes after the kill. And each man carries an atlatl, a spear thrower. This tool is one of their greatest advantages. It is a length of wood or antler, perhaps 1.5 feet long, with a handle at one end and a small hooked spur at the other. The butt of the spear fits against this spur. When they throw, the atlatl acts as an extension of their arm, a lever that whips the spear forward with incredible velocity and force. It allows a skilled user to strike with lethal power from a safer distance. They carry no water, for they know where to find frozen streams and how to break the ice for a drink. They carry no food, for they are the means of acquiring it. They wear layers of well-maintained clothing, stitched trousers, tunics and hoods of reindeer or wolf hide, with soft, fur-lined boots on their feet. Their survival depends on this insulation. They move not with speed, but with a steady, ground-covering pace. It is a kind of rhythmic, shuffling jog that eats up the miles with maximum efficiency. They run not on a path, but through a landscape, their eyes constantly scanning, reading the world around them.
The leader, who walks in front, is the primary tracker. His gaze is fixed 20 yards ahead, not on the horizon. He is reading a story written on the frozen ground. They are following the trail of a herd of reindeer, which they know from from the direction of the wind and the recent snowfall will be seeking shelter in the more wooded valleys to the south. The tracks are faint. To a modern eye, they would be invisible. A slight depression in a patch of snow, a single overturned pebble, a blade of grass bent in a way that is not natural, but to the tracker they are as clear as bold print. He stops, kneeling down. He gestures for the others to halt. He is not looking at a hoof print, but at a small pile of droppings. He touches them. They are not frozen solid. They are still soft in the center. He holds his hand over them and feels the faintest trace of warmth. He does not need to speak. He holds up 4 fingers, then closes them into a fist. A small herd. And then he points to the sun and moves his hand a short distance across the sky. They are not far ahead, perhaps less than an hour. The pace quickens slightly. The sense of purpose intensifies. They move now with even greater caution, their footfalls lighter. They use the rolling terrain to their advantage, staying in the low ground, keeping the ridges between them and their unseen prey. The wind is their most important guide. The leader frequently stops, plucks a single fluffy seed head from a dead plant, and lets it go. He watches it drift, confirming the wind's direction. They must stay downwind of the herd. The reindeer's sense of smell is their greatest defense. A single stray scent of a human on the breeze, and they will be gone, running for miles without stopping.
The landscape changes. The wide open steppe gives way to a more sheltered valley. Here, hardy, stunted birch and willow trees grow in scattered groves. This is more dangerous terrain. The prey has more cover, but so do the hunters. The risk of snapping a twig, of making a sudden loud noise, is much greater. The hunters spread out, forming a wider line, but still keeping each other in sight. They communicate now with a series of subtle hand signals that have been understood since childhood. A raised fist means stop. A flat hand, palm down, means get low. A finger pointed to the side indicates movement. The flint napper, the youngest of the group, is on the flank. His senses are on fire. Every nerve is taut. He is no longer just a man walking. He is a predator, becoming part of the environment. His eyes pierce the tangle of branches, looking for the telltale shape of an antler, the flick of an ear, the horizontal line of a back amongst the vertical lines of the trees. His ears filter out the sound of the wind, listening for the faint click of a hoof on stone, or the sound of an animal browsing. The leader suddenly freezes. He has seen them. He holds his hand up, a flat palm. Every hunter melts into the landscape. One drops to his belly behind a fallen log. Another presses himself flat against the trunk of a birch tree. The leader makes a slow, circular motion with his finger. The herd is just ahead, in a small clearing. Then he points to the youngest hunter, and then points far out to the side. The plan is communicated in silence. The young man will make a wide, slow circle to the other side of the herd. The other 3 will wait. They will try to drive one animal towards him. The young hunter nods, a barely perceptible movement, and then he is gone, moving in a low crouch, using every bush, every tree, every shadow for cover. His movement is agonizingly slow. Each foot is placed with deliberate care, testing the ground for loose stones or dry leaves before committing his weight. This is the essence of the hunt. It is not a chase. It is a long, slow, grinding application of knowledge, patience, and immense physical and mental control. The hunters might wait like this for an hour or more, muscles screaming from holding a cramped position in the cold, their bodies slowly losing heat. But they will not move. They will not falter. They are waiting for the perfect moment, the one chance they might get. The hunt has truly begun, and the world has narrowed to this single, silent, and vital task.
The Mammoth Chase, an epic survival ordeal. As the hunters lie in wait, muscles aching in the biting cold, their focus absolute, their minds are clear. But in the deep collective memory of the band, in the stories told around the fire on dark nights, there are other hunts, hunts of a different scale entirely. Hunts that are spoken of with reverence and caution. The mammoth hunt. Let us drift for a moment from the quiet tension of this reindeer stalk into the memory of such an ordeal, which lives on in the mind of the hunt's leader as he lies motionless, watching the trees. A mammoth hunt is not a decision made lightly. It is not about filling bellies for a few days. It is an immense undertaking, a matter of life and death for the entire band, planned for weeks. It happens only when a unique opportunity presents itself. A lone mammoth, perhaps old or slightly injured, separated from the protection of its herd. Imagine the scene not from this day, but from a year ago. The scouts have brought the news. A lone bull, massive and ancient, has been seen near the great frozen lake. The decision is made. This is a hunt for all the able-bodied hunters of the band, not just 4. 10 men, the best trackers, the strongest arms. The chase is not a chase at all, but a relentless, multi-day pursuit. The hunters do not try to catch the mammoth. They simply follow it, day and night. They run in relays, never letting the great beast rest. Their goal is to exhaust it, to wear it down through sheer, dogged persistence. The scale is difficult to comprehend. The mammoth stands twice as tall as a man at the shoulder, a moving mountain of muscle and shaggy, reddish-brown fur. Its great curved tusks could splinter a tree. Its tread shakes the very ground. To approach it is to invite annihilation.
So they follow, always staying a safe distance, a pack of tiny, persistent figures against the vast white landscape. For 3 days they follow. They eat on the move, chewing dried meat from their pouches. They sleep in short, freezing bursts while others keep watch. They feel their own bodies breaking down from the strain, the endless jogging, the lack of warm sleep. But they also see the great beast beginning to tire. Its pace slows. Its head hangs a little lower. It is confused and harassed by these small creatures who never leave it alone, who are always there, just at the edge of its vision. The moment to act comes at a place chosen by the hunters, a narrow ravine with steep, icy sides. They have herded the mammoth here, subtly guiding its path over many miles. As the beast enters the ravine, hunters who were lying in wait create a wall of noise behind it, shouting, banging spears against rocks. Other hunters, perched on the ravine's edge above, do the same. The mammoth is trapped. It bellows, a sound of fury and confusion that echoes from the icy walls. It is a terrifying sound, a sound that could break a man's nerve. But their nerves hold. Now, from above, they do not throw their best spears. They roll massive boulders down the slope. The first few miss, crashing harmlessly. But then one strikes the animal's leg with a sickening crunch. The mammoth stumbles, roaring in pain. Another boulder strikes its flank. It is injured, its mobility compromised. Only now do the hunters approach with their spears. They do not charge wildly. It is a coordinated, tactical assault. They dart in from the sides, thrusting their spears deep into the mammoth's thick hide, aiming for the vulnerable belly and flanks. They use their atlatls to launch spears from a distance, adding to the wounds.
It is a chaotic, brutal, and terrifying ballet. A hunter slips on the icy ground and is nearly trampled, saved only by another who drags him away. A spear shaft snaps. The air is filled with the roaring of the mammoth and the shouting of the men. It is a scene of profound violence, a desperate struggle for survival on both sides. The ordeal lasts for what feels like an eternity. The great beast, bleeding from a dozen wounds, weakened and exhausted, finally sinks to its knees. Then, slowly, it collapses onto its side with a great sigh that sends a plume of steam into the frozen air. There is no celebration, only a deep, collective exhale of relief and a profound, weary silence. The hunters stand, leaning on their spears, their bodies battered, their energy utterly spent. They look at the mountain of life they have taken. It is a somber moment. The work that follows is monumental. The butchering of a mammoth can take more than a day. The entire band, women and children included, must travel to the kill site. A temporary camp is established. The hide, thick and immensely heavy, is peeled back in huge sections. The meat is carved away, hundreds and hundreds of pounds of it. The fat, a precious high-energy resource, is carefully rendered. The internal organs are consumed first, rich in vitamins. The great bones will be used as frames for shelters, the tusks as tools or sacred objects. Nothing, absolutely nothing, is wasted. This one kill will sustain the band for an entire winter. It provides not just food, but raw materials for clothing, shelter, tools, and art. It is a windfall that reshapes their entire existence for months to come. This is the memory that flickers in the leader's mind as he lies in the snow. He remembers the immense risk, the terror, the exhaustion. He remembers a friend who was gored in a hunt years before, a wound that never properly healed. He pushes the memory away.
Today is not a day for such epics. Today is for caution, for quiet skill, and for the much smaller, much safer prize that waits in the trees ahead. The reindeer hunt is the prose of survival. The mammoth chase is its epic poetry, a story to be told, but not a life to be lived every day. His focus returns, sharp and clear, to the present moment, to the flick of a reindeer's ear visible now through the branches. Shelter from the storm, building and maintaining the camp.
The mammoth now lies still upon the frozen ground. The ordeal of the chase is over. But for the hunters and the rest of the band, the work has just begun. They will spend the night butchering the great beast under the cold light of the stars. But what draws them on is the thought of returning to a place of safety, of warmth, of community, returning to their shelter. In a world of immense, open spaces and relentless, life-stealing cold, shelter was everything. It was more than a roof. It was the anchor of existence, the boundary between the wild, unpredictable world and the small, ordered sphere of human life.
Let us return to the cave we woke in this morning. This is a permanent camp, a place of deep memory. Its stone walls offer the ultimate protection from the wind and predators. But even a natural shelter is not without its need for constant maintenance.
Imagine the daily rhythm of keeping this home. The floor, made of packed earth, must be periodically swept clean with a bundle of stiff twigs. Food waste and bone fragments are not left to accumulate inside, but are carried to a specific refuse pile some distance from the cave's mouth, so as not to attract scavengers too close.
The sleeping hollows, filled with their mattresses of moss and grass, must be cared for. On the rare sunny, dry days, the furs and the moss might be taken outside to air out, to prevent them from becoming damp and mildewed. A damp bed in this cold is a path to sickness.
The area around the hearth requires constant attention. The ashes must be managed, not allowed to spill out. The supply of firewood and tinder, gathered with so much effort, must be kept perfectly dry in a specific, protected alcove, away from any drips of moisture that might run down the cave walls. The shelter is a living space, constantly being improved. A loose rock might be wedged into a crack to create a new hook for hanging a hide bag. A particularly sharp edge of rock on the wall might be patiently ground down with another stone to prevent injury. It is a slow, unending process of domestic care.
But not all bands had the good fortune of a perfect south-facing cave. For many, shelter was something that had to be conceived, designed, and built from the materials of the landscape itself.
And here, the fallen mammoth offers its final gifts. Its meat will feed the clan for weeks. Its hide will provide clothing. And its very bones will form a home.
Imagine a group of people in a place with no caves, on the open steppe. They have killed a mammoth. They will now build a shelter that they may use for a whole season. First, they lay the foundation. The largest, heaviest bones, the massive skulls and lower jaw bones, are arranged in a rough circle, perhaps 15 to 20 feet across. These form a solid, immovable base. Then comes the framework. They take the long, curving tusks and drive the points into the frozen earth, leaning them inwards to cross at the top, forming a great domed roof. The massive leg bones and ribs are wedged between the skulls of the foundation, creating a sturdy lattice-work wall. This is heavy, communal labor, requiring the coordinated effort of many people. Once this skeleton of a house is complete, it must be given its skin. The huge, heavy hides of the mammoth, scraped clean of flesh, are draped over the bone framework. These are not single, perfect sheets, but multiple hides, painstakingly stitched together using awls made of bone and thread made of sinew. The edges of the hides are weighed down with heavy stones and blocks of turf, sealing the structure to the ground and making it windproof. The result is a sturdy, dome-shaped hut. From the outside, it looks like a low, organic mound, blending into the landscape. But inside, it is a haven. A central hearth is dug, with a small opening left at the very top of the dome to allow smoke to escape. The floor is insulated with the same care as in the cave, with layers of grass and fur. Imagine stepping inside. The howling of the wind is instantly muffled, reduced to a low hum. The darkness is comforting. Once the fire is lit, the space is filled with a warm, flickering light. The air is thick with the scent of hide, earth, and smoke. It is a small, self-contained world, a fortress of human ingenuity against the vast, icy plains. These mammoth bone houses were masterpieces of engineering, but other, simpler shelters were also common. A hunting party, far from home, might build a simple lean-to against a rock outcropping, using a few precious wooden poles and a covering of reindeer hides. In areas with more trees, they might build huts with a wooden frame, covered in bark or sod. Whatever its form, the camp was the center of the world. It was where tools were made, where food was shared, where children were raised, and where the stories of the people were told. It was the physical manifestation of community, a fragile but determined assertion of order in a world of chaos. It was the safe place you held in your mind during the long, dangerous hours of the hunt, the storm you sheltered from, both literal and metaphorical. Fire, ritual, warmth, and protection. Let us now turn our attention to the single most important element within the shelter. It is more than a tool, more than a comfort. It is a living presence, the true heart of the clan. It is the fire. We have already witnessed the quiet, urgent ritual of its rebirth in the morning's cold darkness. But its importance permeates every moment of the day and night. Fire is the technology that fundamentally separates the human world from the animal one.
First, and most obviously, fire is warmth. In the relentless cold of the Ice Age, this warmth is not a luxury. It is the line between life and a slow, frozen death. Imagine the feeling of returning to the cave after hours of gathering in the biting wind. The cold has seeped deep into your bones. Your fingers and toes are numb, your muscles stiff.
As you step into the shelter, the wave of warmth from the hearth washes over you. It is a physical shock, a profound sense of release and safety. You hold your numb hands out to the flames, feeling the sharp, tingling sensation as the blood returns to them. The fire thaws the chill from your body, but it also thaws a certain frozen tension in your mind. To be warm is to be safe.
Secondly, fire is protection. The world outside the cave mouth is filled with predators far stronger and faster than humans. Cave lions, hyenas, great bears. They are masters of the darkness, but they all have a deep instinctual fear of fire.
At night, the hearth is not allowed to dwindle to embers. It is built up, a bright, dancing wall of light and heat. It stands as a sentinel at the mouth of the cave or the entrance to the hut. A hunter on watch does not just look into the darkness. He listens and he tends the flames. The fire is his shield and his spear. The crackle of the burning wood, the sparks that fly up into the night, these are the signals that tell the hungry things in the dark to keep their distance. This small circle of light is a fortress.
Thirdly, fire is a tool, a transformative force. It is a prehistoric workshop. Raw, indigestible roots, when buried in the hot embers, are transformed into soft, sweet, nourishing food. The tough, sinewy meat of a wild horse or bison, when held over the flames, becomes tender, its fats rendered, making it easier to chew and digest, unlocking more of its precious calories.
Fire hardens the points of wooden spears, making them nearly as effective as stone. It helps to straighten the shafts of those same spears, removing the warps and bends. It provides the light needed for the delicate, intricate work of flint knapping or sewing a watertight seam in a piece of hide long after the sun has gone down. Fire allows the work of survival to continue into the hours of darkness.
But the role of fire extends far beyond the practical. It is also the center of all ritual and social life.
Imagine the end of the day. The band is gathered. The bellies are full. The wind howls outside, but inside the shelter, all is calm. All eyes are drawn to the dancing flames. The fire is a source of endless fascination. Its constantly changing shapes and colors, the way it consumes the wood and gives back light and heat, is a mystery and a spectacle. It is in this light that stories are told. An elder begins to speak, his voice a low rhythm against the crackle of the flames. He tells the story of the first hunter, or the tale of how the moon was tricked by a fox. These are not just entertainments.
They are the clan's memory, their history, their morality, passed from one generation to the next. The firelight softens the faces of the listeners, their eyes wide, lost in the world of the story. It is by the fire that disputes are settled, that decisions are made. Its presence seems to encourage a kind of gravity and seriousness. It is a silent, elemental witness to the life of the community. The fire is also a connection to the past and the future. This very hearth may have been continuously maintained for generations. The act of tending it, of feeding it wood, of using its coals to light the next day's fire, is a link in an unbroken chain stretching back into the deep past. It is a duty, a sacred trust. To let the fire die is not just a practical failure. It is a severing of that connection, a terrible omen. So, the fire is a constant companion, a demanding one that requires a steady supply of fuel gathered at great effort, a dangerous one that can burn and destroy if not treated with respect. But its gifts are immeasurable. It is warmth, light, safety, a kitchen, a workshop, and a temple. It is the sun brought down to earth and held captive in a circle of stones, and around it, all of human life revolves. Midday hunger, scarcity, fasting, and foraging again. The sun has reached its highest point in the pale winter sky. For us, this is the time of a midday meal, a pause in our work to refuel. For the people of the Ice Age, the concept of 3 regular meals a day would be an unimaginable luxury. Midday is simply the middle of the long stretch between the small morsel of the morning and the hope of a meal in the evening. Hunger is not an event. It is a state of being, a constant, low-level companion, a dull ache in the belly that is the background music to daily life. True, satiating fullness is a rare and celebrated occasion, like after the successful conclusion of a great hunt. Most days are lived in a state of managed scarcity. This is not the desperate, acute starvation of a famine, but a deep, evolutionary adaptation to a world of unpredictable returns. The human body is designed for this rhythm, capable of immense endurance on very little fuel. The people are lean, with almost no excess body fat, but their muscles are dense and efficient. They are used to the feeling of an empty stomach. It does not create panic. It creates focus. Hunger sharpens the senses, reminding every member of the band of the unending daily imperative to find food. Let us return to those who stayed behind at the camp, the women, the children, the elders. The few roots and grubs gathered in the morning were a welcome addition to the larder, but they are being saved for the communal evening meal. The midday passes with no food at all. This is a period of fasting. The children, perhaps, feel the hunger most acutely. A young child might cry, and their mother will comfort them, perhaps giving them a strip of tough, old hide to chew on, something to work their jaws and distract from the emptiness. Or she may offer a drink of cool water. They learn from the youngest age that hunger is a normal part of the day, a feeling to be endured. For the adults, the midday hunger is a spur to further action. The morning's foraging was close to home, under the shadow of the lion's presence. But now hours have passed. The sun is up. The lion has likely moved on. A decision is made to venture a little farther out. Once again, a small group sets out from the cave. An older woman, a mother with a toddler bundled in a sling on her back, and a teenage girl learning the ways of gathering. Their tools are the same: digging sticks, a woven basket. They move with a quiet purpose, their eyes scanning the ground. Their search is for anything the morning's forage missed. They are moving towards a small frozen stream bed. The older woman knows that even in winter, small edible green plants sometimes cling to life in the protected space under the lip of the stream bank. They are looking for things like wild sorrel or wintercress. The work is cold and painstaking. They use their sticks to chip away the ice along the edge of the bank, peering into the dark, frozen soil beneath. They find a small patch. The leaves are tiny and hardy, but they are green. They are life. They taste sharp, acidic, and vibrant. They are picked leaf by tiny leaf and added to the basket. This small handful of greens will provide vital nutrients that are scarce in a diet heavy with meat and fat. They also keep an eye out for smaller game. The teenage girl is carrying a throwing stick, a simple, well-balanced club. She is watching for Arctic hares, their white winter coats a near-perfect camouflage against the snowy ground. She has been practicing with this stick since she was small, learning to throw with a quick, accurate snap of the wrist. She spots one, a flicker of movement. The hare is almost invisible. She freezes, her body held in perfect stillness. The others see it too, and they stop, becoming statues. The girl slowly, deliberately raises her arm. The hare senses something and bolts, a white streak across the landscape. The girl throws. The stick cartwheels through the air and misses, clattering against a frozen rock 20 yards away. The hare is gone. There is no sign of frustration or disappointment. It was a long shot. She simply retrieves her throwing stick, and the search continues. Failure is a far more common outcome than success. The mother, with the child on her back, is focused on something else. She is walking along the edge of a patch of stunted willows, looking at the bark. She finds what she is looking for: a tree where voles have burrowed underneath the roots, creating small tunnels. She knows that these tiny rodents often store caches of seeds or small roots in their burrows for the winter. She kneels down and begins to dig carefully with her hands and a piece of sharpened bone. It is like robbing a tiny pantry. She follows the tunnel and finds it, a small hoard of seeds, no more than a couple of handfuls. It is a treasure, a dense package of fat and protein. She scoops the seeds into a small leather pouch. This is the nature of midday foraging. It is the search for the overlooked, the small, the hidden. It is a testament to the depth of their knowledge. They are not just finding food. They are finding the food that other animals have already found and stored. They are participants in a complex web of survival. As the afternoon begins to wane, they turn back towards the camp. Their basket is not full. They have a handful of greens, a pouch of seeds. It is not much, but it is more than they had. It will supplement the evening meal. The hunger in their bellies is still there, a dull and familiar ache, but it is matched by the quiet satisfaction of their small successes. They have once again used their knowledge and their effort to wrest a living from the harsh, beautiful, and unforgiving land. The fast will be broken, eventually, but for now, it is simply a part of the day's gentle, persistent rhythm.
Family and tribe, social bonds and daily tensions.
As the afternoon light begins to fade, the small world of the shelter becomes the focus of all activity. The foraging party has returned with their modest gains. The hunters have not yet been sighted. An air of quiet anticipation hangs in the fire-lit space, and it is in these moments of waiting that the intricate social fabric of the band is most visible. This small group of perhaps 20 to 30 individuals is not just a collection of people. It is a single, complex organism woven from threads of kinship, alliance, and shared history. At its core is the family. Imagine the mother who was out foraging. She returns and unslings the toddler from her back. The child, happy to be free, scrambles on unsteady legs towards an older man sitting by the fire, mending a tear in a hide rope with a bone awl. This is his grandfather. The old man's face, a mask of weathered patience, softens. He says nothing, but simply opens his arms and pulls the child onto his lap, sharing his warmth and wrapping a corner of his own fur tunic around the small body. This simple, silent gesture is a universe of love and continuity.
Nearby, a young boy of about 10 sits beside his uncle, the master flint knapper. The man is working on a new tool, a small, delicate blade. The boy is motionless, his eyes wide and focused, absorbing every detail. He watches the way his uncle holds the stone, the precise angle of the antler tine used for pressure flaking, the tiny tick sound as a perfect, crescent-shaped flake falls away. This is how knowledge is passed, not through formal lessons, but through thousands of hours of proximity and silent observation. The boy's play will mimic this work. He will spend days with lesser stones, learning their secrets, until one day his hands will know the rhythm without his mind having to think.
These bonds are forged in the crucible of absolute codependence. Life is a series of complementary tasks. The hunters, out in the vast emptiness, are masters of tracking, endurance, and lethal force. But their success would mean little without the women's mastery of different, equally vital skills. It is the women who know how to scrape, cure, and soften the hides to make them into warm, waterproof clothing. It is their knowledge that turns a raw, stiff pelt into a life-saving garment. The hunters bring the meat, but the women know how to dry it, smoke it, and render its fat, preserving the bounty of a single kill for the weeks and months to come. This interdependence fosters a profound sense of community. When the foraging party returns, the handful of greens and seeds are not hoarded by those who found them. They are brought to the communal space by the fire and added to the collective pot, so to speak. The concept of personal property is fluid and limited. A person owns their clothes, their personal knife, an ornament of shell or ivory. But food, the resource of life itself, is shared according to a complex, unspoken calculus of need and status.
Yet, this is not an idyllic commune free from friction. They are human. The close quarters, the lack of privacy, the constant, grinding pressure of survival, these things inevitably create tension. Imagine two brothers who were part of the reindeer hunt we left earlier. Perhaps one believes the other was too slow, too clumsy, and may have cost them an opportunity. A sharp word is spoken. A resentful silence follows. In the vastness of the steppe, the conflict is ignored. But back in the cave, it becomes a palpable thing, a cold spot in the warmth of the firelight.
The tension cannot be allowed to fester. It might be a sister or a mother who intervenes, speaking quietly to each brother in turn, reminding them of their bond, of their shared reliance on one another. Or perhaps the conflict is simply left to fade, the shared work of the evening, mending tools, preparing food, slowly eroding the anger until it is forgotten, if not entirely forgiven. Social harmony is not a given. It is a constant, ongoing project.
Grief is also a communal burden. Perhaps a woman is quietly stitching a new patch onto a child's tunic. As she works, her eyes fall upon a particular necklace of carved bone hanging from a peg on the wall. It belonged to her mate, lost to a blizzard the previous winter. A deep sadness wells up, but there is no dramatic outburst. She simply pauses her work, her hands still for a long moment. An older woman beside her, seeing where her gaze has fallen, reaches out and places a hand on her arm. Nothing is said, nothing needs to be. The shared touch acknowledges the pain, and in doing so, lessens its weight. In a group this small, every member is precious, and every loss leaves a hole that is felt by all.
The tribe extends beyond the cave walls. The band is aware of other groups, cousins and distant kin, who live a valley over or follow a different herd. Once a year, in the brief abundance of summer, several of these bands might travel to a sacred meeting place. This is a time of immense social energy. Old alliances are renewed and new ones are forged. It is a time for trade, a chance to acquire high-quality flint from a region famous for it, or beautiful seashells carried for hundreds of miles from a coast they have never seen. And, most importantly, it is a time for finding partners, for young men and women to form new family bonds, weaving the genetic and social fabric of the wider tribe ever tighter, ensuring its resilience for generations to come. Thus, the life within the shelter is a constant, delicate balance. It is a dance between deep, unspoken love and the irritations of close living, between communal need and individual pride. It is a fragile, resilient network of human connection that provides not just physical shelter from the storm, but an essential emotional and psychological fortress against the vast, indifferent world outside.
Ice Age mysteries, disappearing cave art in ancient shelters.
Let us now leave the living room of the cave, the fire-lit chamber where the daily life of the band unfolds. Let us imagine that one of the elders takes a lit torch, a piece of pine soaked in fat, and beckons you to follow. You leave the warmth and the familiar smells behind, and you venture deeper into the mountain itself. The passage is narrow and low. You have to stoop to get through. The air grows colder, damper. The only sound is the sputtering of your torch and the echo of your own breathing. The light from the flame casts huge, dancing shadows that seem to mock your presence. After a few hundred feet, the passage opens up into a vast, silent chamber, a cathedral of stone hidden in the belly of the earth. This place feels different. It is not a home. It is sacred. And here, on the walls, you see them, the mysteries. The torchlight reveals the stunning, vivid image of a great bull aurochs, its massive shoulders powerfully rendered, its horns seeming to charge right out of the rock. The artist used the natural bulge of the cave wall to give the animal a three-dimensional, living quality. The paint, made from ground-up minerals, black from manganese oxide, red and yellow from ochre, is as vibrant as if it were painted yesterday, not 10,000 years ago. You move the torch, and another image appears. A herd of horses, their heads all turned in the same direction, their manes flowing. They seem to be in motion, a ghostly stampede frozen in time. Their forms are captured with an astonishing confidence and economy of line. This is not crude graffiti. This is the work of a master, someone with a profound understanding of animal anatomy and a deep spiritual connection to the world they depicted. Who were these artists? Were they specialists, shamans, or ordinary hunters who possessed an extraordinary gift? We do not know. What was the purpose of these deep cave galleries? They were not decorative. They are found in the most remote, difficult to access parts of the caves, places that were never used for living. To reach them required a dangerous journey into the dark, a deliberate pilgrimage away from the world of light and life. Perhaps the act of painting was a ritual. Imagine the artist, their face illuminated by the flickering, unreliable light of a tallow lamp, chanting or singing as they mixed their powdered pigments with cave water or animal fat. Perhaps they believed that by capturing the image of the animal, they were capturing its spirit, ensuring a successful hunt. The painting was not just a picture of a bison. It was the spirit of the bison, a way to connect with the powerful forces of the natural world. You look closer at a panel. You see not just the large, magnificent animals, but other, stranger symbols. There are grids of dots, straight lines, and mysterious geometric shapes we call tectiforms that look a bit like huts or traps. There are also handprints. Sometimes they are positive prints, a hand dipped in pigment and pressed to the wall. More often, they are negative stencils. A hand was placed flat against the stone, and pigment was spat or blown through a hollow bone around it, leaving a ghostly outline of the hand, a permanent signature saying, I was here.
But this is where one of the greatest mysteries begins. These magnificent galleries, which flourished for over 20,000 years, eventually came to an end. The tradition of creating this deep, monumental art seems to fade, and in many places it disappears altogether. Why? What happened in the minds of these people? Did their beliefs change? Did the rituals associated with the art lose their meaning or their power?
As the great ice sheets of the last glacial maximum began their slow, final retreat, the world outside the cave began to change dramatically. The climate warmed. The vast, open mammoth steppe, home to the great herds, slowly transformed. Forests began to spread north, replacing the grasslands. The herds of mammoth, woolly rhino, and giant deer began to dwindle, eventually vanishing forever. The reindeer herds moved north, following the retreating cold.
Did the art disappear because the animals it depicted were disappearing? Was the magic no longer working?
Or perhaps the change was social. As the environment shifted, the small, mobile bands of hunters may have had to change their way of life. Perhaps the new forested environments favored smaller, more territorial groups. And the great seasonal gatherings where artistic traditions were shared and reinforced no longer took place. The knowledge, once passed down through generations of artists, may have simply been lost. The chain of transmission broken.
We see evidence of this fading in some caves. Later art is sometimes painted over the top of much older, more masterful works. In other places, the style changes, becoming more schematic, less naturalistic. The great, vibrant polychrome animals are replaced by simple monochrome engravings. It is like listening to a grand symphony slowly fade out, one instrument at a time, until only a single faint note remains. Standing here in the deep, silent darkness of the cave, you are a witness to this immense mystery. You are looking at the last expressions of a worldview that dominated human consciousness for millennia. The artists who made these images were not just painting animals. They were painting their reality, their fears, their hopes, their connection to a spiritual world we can now only guess at. The reason for the end of this incredible artistic tradition is one of history's great unanswered questions. It is a disappearing act performed on a continental scale over thousands of years, leaving behind only these magnificent, silent galleries, and the profound mystery of why the story they were telling came to an end. Lost cultures, vanished bands, and lonely graveyards. The mystery of the disappearing art speaks to a larger, more poignant truth of this deep past. Entire cultures, entire ways of being in the world have vanished, leaving behind only the faintest of traces. The band we have been following, with their specific traditions, their unique knowledge of their territory, their particular way of knapping flint, they are but one small thread in a vast and complex tapestry of human existence, and most of those threads are now lost to us forever. We tend to think of the Stone Age as a single, monolithic block of time, But in reality, it was a succession of countless different cultures, each with its own identity, that rose, flourished, and eventually faded away. We know them only by the faintest of archaeological whispers. We give them names based on the places we first find their tools: the Orynician, the Gravettian, the Solutrian, the Magdalenian. These are not the names they called themselves. Their own names, their languages, their stories are gone, carried away on the wind like smoke.
Imagine our band of hunters. They are successful. They thrive in their valley for 1,000 years, for 50 generations. Their particular style of spearpoint is refined and perfected. Their descendants continue to visit the sacred, painted chambers deep within the earth.
But nothing is permanent. A subtle shift in climate, lasting only a few hundred years, might cause the reindeer herds they depend on to alter their migration routes, moving 50 miles to the east. Our band would be faced with a stark choice: follow the herds into a new, unknown territory, or try to adapt to the new animals that appear in their valley.
If they follow, they may come into conflict with other bands already living in that new territory. If they stay, their old hunting techniques might not work on the swifter, more solitary animals of the growing forests. In either case, their way of life is under immense pressure. Over generations, their old culture might erode, blending with others, or simply failing to adapt. 1,000 years later, another group might live in the same cave, but their tools would be different, their art, if they made any, would be different, their very way of seeing the world would have changed. The original culture would be lost. Sometimes the end was more abrupt. A sudden, catastrophic volcanic eruption thousands of miles away could dim the sun for years, causing a volcanic winter that devastates plant and animal life across the continent. A band that was thriving one year could face starvation the next.
Or disease, an invisible enemy, could sweep through a population. With no knowledge of germs or sanitation, a virulent illness could burn through a small, isolated band in a matter of weeks, leaving no one behind. All that would remain is the silent evidence of their existence. A scatter of flint tools on a river terrace, a pile of animal bones in the corner of a cave. These are the lonely footprints of a vanished people.
And sometimes we find something far more personal, far more intimate: their graves.
The burial of the dead is a profound act. It suggests a belief in something beyond the physical, a sense of identity that persists after life has fled the body. Yet, Ice Age burials are incredibly rare. For tens of thousands of years, it seems most people were not formally buried at all. Perhaps they were left to the elements, to be returned to the cycle of nature. We do not know. But when we do find a grave, it offers a deeply moving glimpse into their world.
Imagine archaeologists excavating a site in what is now Central Europe. They find the remains of 2 young men and a child buried together over 30,000 years ago. This is not a simple hole in the ground. It is a place of profound ritual. The bodies were laid to rest head to head. They were not empty-handed. They were adorned, covered in thousands upon thousands of painstakingly drilled beads carved from the ivory of a mammoth's tusk. Think of the effort. Each bead would have taken hours to carve and drill with a simple flint tool. The sheer number of them represents thousands of hours of labor. This was not a casual act. This was a tremendous outpouring of love, of grief, of respect. The people who buried these individuals were clothing them in immense wealth and status for a journey into the next world. The bodies were also sprinkled with red ochre, a pigment that symbolized blood and life to many ancient cultures. In another place, we find the grave of a man, also buried with ivory beads, but with a strange deformity in his hip. Analysis of his bones shows that he would have been severely disabled from a young age. He could not have been a hunter. He could not have pulled his own weight in the daily quest for food. And yet he lived to be an adult. He was cared for, fed, and protected by his group his entire life. And when he died, he was buried with the same honor as a great hunter. This single, lonely grave speaks volumes about the capacity for compassion and social care that existed even in this harsh and demanding world. These graves are like lonely lighthouses in a vast, dark ocean of time. They illuminate for a brief moment the emotional lives and the belief systems of these lost cultures. Each one is a story. The story of a child loved so much they were covered in treasure. The story of a community that cared for its weakest members. And the story of countless other vanished bands who faced the world with courage and ingenuity, but whose graves we will never find, and whose stories are lost to the silence forever. Shamans, rituals, illness, and visions in the night.
In a world filled with unseen forces, the sudden sickness that fells a strong hunter, the inexplicable disappearance of a herd, the terrifying power of a thunderstorm, there was a need for an intermediary, a person who could walk between the world of the living and the vast, mysterious realm of the spirits. This person was the shaman. The shaman was not a chief or a king. Their power was not political. It was spiritual. They were often people who were somehow set apart from the others. Perhaps they had survived a terrible illness or a lightning strike. Perhaps they were prone to dreams and visions. They were individuals who had, in one way or another, touched the other side and returned with knowledge.
Let us imagine a scene in our cave. The night is deep. The fire burns low. The band is gathered, but they are not telling stories or mending tools. There is a tense, anxious silence. A young child is sick. A fever has taken hold, and the child is weak, unresponsive. The remedies of the wise woman, the willow bark tea, the cool moss on the forehead, have not worked. The illness is not of the body, it is of the spirit. The child's spirit, they believe, has been stolen or has wandered away.
This is a time for the shaman. He might be an old man, his face a road map of wrinkles, or a woman with eyes that seem to look through you. The shaman begins the ritual not with medicine, but with sound. A rattle made from a dried gourd filled with pebbles begins a soft, insistent rhythm. Or perhaps a drum, a piece of hide stretched over a wooden frame, begins to beat,
a slow, steady pulse that mimics the human heart. The rhythm is hypnotic. It slowly, steadily fills the cave, quieting the minds of the anxious family, drawing all attention to the shaman. He begins to chant a low, monotonous song. The words are ancient, perhaps from a ritual language that no one else fully understands. The song is not for the people, it is for the spirits. He is calling to his allies in the spirit world, the powerful animal guides he has communed with in his visions. As the drumming and chanting continue, a change comes over the shaman. His body begins to tremble, to twitch. He is entering a trance. This is the spirit journey. His consciousness is leaving his body, leaving the cave, to travel into the spirit world, to find the lost soul of the child. To achieve this state of trance, the shaman might use many tools. The rhythmic sound is one. Exhausting, night-long dancing is another. Fasting for days on end to heighten the senses is a third. And in some cultures, they may have used psychoactive plants, mysterious mushrooms or roots that opened the doors of perception, allowing them to see what others could not. In the flickering firelight, the shaman's shadow dances on the cave wall, huge and distorted. He might take on the character of his spirit animal, moving like a bear or crying out with the voice of an eagle. To the onlookers, this is a terrifying and awesome spectacle. He is no longer the person they know. He is a vessel for a power that is ancient and wild. In his trance, the shaman navigates the treacherous landscape of the spirit world. He fights off malevolent spirits who wish to do the child harm. He follows the faint trail of the child's spirit, eventually finding it, perhaps trapped or lost. He coaxes it, bargains for it, or fights for it, and then begins the long journey back to the world of the living. After what could be hours, the drumming slows, the chanting fades, the shaman collapses, exhausted, drenched in sweat. He is back in his own body. He is quiet for a long time. Then he speaks, his voice weak. He might describe his journey, and he might perform a final act, seeming to blow the recovered spirit back into the body of the sick child. And perhaps by morning, the child's fever breaks. Was it the work of the shaman, or was it simply the body's own healing process running its course? To the band, the answer is obvious. The shaman saved the child. His power is affirmed. His status is reinforced. The shaman's role was not limited to healing. He was the keeper of the most sacred rituals. He was the one who led the ceremonies before a great hunt, painting the sacred symbols on the hunters' bodies and weapons. He was the one who could interpret dreams and omens, the meaning of a shooting star, or the sudden appearance of a rare white crow. And it was almost certainly the shamans who were the artists of the deep caves. Look again at the mysterious figures on the walls.
Alongside the beautiful naturalistic animals, we sometimes see strange hybrid beings. A figure with a human body and the head of a stag, or a man's body with the head of a bird. These are therianthropes, and they are likely depictions of the shaman himself, captured in the middle of his transformation, his spirit merging with that of his animal guide. The geometric shapes, the dots, the grids, these may be records of the shimmering, abstract vision seen in a deep trance state.
The deep, dark, silent caves were the perfect place for this work. They were natural sensory deprivation chambers, cutting the shaman off from the outside world, making it easier to turn his vision inward. The journey into the earth was a physical enactment of the journey into the spirit world. The art was not just a record of the vision, it was a portal, a place where the veil between the worlds was thin.
The shaman was the psychologist, the doctor, and the priest of his people, all rolled into one. He provided hope in the face of illness, meaning in the face of mystery, and a sense of order in a universe that often seemed chaotic and hostile. He was the weaver of the unseen threads that connected the human world to the vast, powerful, and eternal world of the spirits. Chiefs and decision-making, prestige and power at the campfire. In a society without stone palaces, without written laws, without the vast and impersonal bureaucracy of a settled empire, power was a different kind of entity. It was not something you could simply inherit and possess, like a crown or a throne. For the Scythians, power was a living thing. It had to be earned, constantly nurtured, and could be lost as quickly as a horse in a blizzard. It was a currency of respect, a quality the Greeks and Romans struggled to fully grasp, which we might call prestige.
A Scythian chief was not a king in the way a Persian was a king. He did not rule by divine, unquestionable right from a distant, glittering capital. His authority grew from the earth of the steppe itself, from the people he led. To become a chief, and to remain one, required a careful balancing of several essential qualities. First and foremost, he had to be a warrior of proven renown. His name had to be one spoken with respect, not only in his own camp, but in the camps of his rivals and his enemies. This did not necessarily mean he was the most reckless or brutal fighter, but that his courage was beyond question and his strategic mind was sharp. His scars were his credentials. The trophies he had taken in battle, the fine armor, the gilded weapons, the purebred horses, were not just personal wealth. They were a public resume, a testament to his ability to protect the tribe and lead it to victory. Young warriors looked to him not just for orders, but for an example of what a Scythian man should be.
But prowess in battle was not enough. A chief also had to be immensely wealthy and immensely generous. In the Scythian world, wealth was not measured in gold hoarded in a vault. It was measured in life, in motion. Wealth was the sheer number of horses, cattle, and sheep that grazed under the watch of his herdsmen. A vast herd was a visible symbol of divine favor and personal success. It meant he could feed his followers, provide mounts for his warriors, and ensure the prosperity of the clan. This wealth, however, was only a source of power if it was shared.
The concept of largesse, of lavish generosity, was central to a chief's authority. He was expected to host great feasts where rivers of fermented mare's milk, or kumis, would flow, and entire sheep and cattle would be roasted over open pits. At these gatherings, he would distribute gifts: a fine dagger to a loyal warrior, a string of beads to the wife of an important ally, a strong horse to a promising young man. This was not simple charity. It was the sinew that bound the tribe to him. Through his generosity, he created a web of obligation and loyalty. To accept a gift from a chief was to accept his leadership. To be excluded from his generosity was to be an outsider. So, imagine yourself now on the periphery of this central circle. The night is cool, and the air is thick with the scent of wood smoke, roasting meat, and the earthy smell of the herd animals settled nearby. The largest bonfire in the camp crackles and spits, casting long, dancing shadows. In the ring of light sit the key figures of the tribe. At its head is the chief. He is not necessarily the oldest man there, but his presence is unmistakable. Perhaps he wears a finely decorated tunic or a torque of twisted gold around his neck, but his real authority emanates from his stillness, from the way the others watch him, even when he is silent.
Around him are the elders, men whose faces are maps of long years on the steppe, their wisdom valued as much as a young man's strength. There are also the leading warriors, his most trusted lieutenants, their hands resting near the hilts of their swords, their eyes sharp and watchful. This is the council. This is where decisions are made. There is no gavel, no rule book. The process is organic, rooted in custom and conversation. Perhaps the topic is movement. Scouts have returned with reports of fresh pastures 2 weeks' ride to the east, but the route passes near the territory of a rival tribe. Is the reward of better grazing worth the risk of conflict? An old man, his voice a low rumble like distant thunder, speaks first. He recalls a similar journey from his youth, the dangers they faced, the losses they suffered. He counsels caution. Then a young, ambitious warrior stands. His voice is sharp and clear. He speaks of the glory to be won, of showing their rivals their strength, of the need for the herds to be strong for the coming winter. He advocates for the journey, for confrontation if necessary.
Other voices join in. A herdsman speaks of the condition of the livestock. A shaman might offer a cryptic reading of a sign or a dream. The conversation is not a rapid-fire debate. There are long periods of silence, where the only sound is the crackle of the fire and the wind sighing over the grass. Each man considers the words of the others, weighing them against his own experience.
Throughout all of this, the chief listens. He may ask a pointed question, seeking clarity from a scout or challenging an assumption made by a warrior. His role is not to dictate, but to absorb the collective wisdom and will of his people. He is listening for a consensus to emerge, a path that most of the key figures can agree to support. His power lies in his ability to perceive this consensus and articulate it as the final decision. When he finally speaks, his voice carries the weight of all the silence that came before it. He might agree with the elder,
deciding the risk is too great and proposing an alternative route. Or he might side with the young warrior, but temper the decision with caution, laying out a careful plan to avoid unnecessary conflict. Whatever he decides, it must be perceived as wise. A series of poor decisions, a failed raid, a lost herd, a disastrous move, would quickly erode the prestige upon which his entire authority rested. Another, more successful, more charismatic warrior could begin to draw followers away, hosting his own feasts, forming his own council. Power was always in flux. This process applied to all major decisions, matters of war and peace, alliances and rivalries, and the administration of justice. If a man was killed, it was before the chief and his council that the blood feud would be negotiated, with weregild, a payment in horses or cattle often used to prevent a cycle of revenge from tearing the tribe apart. If livestock were stolen, it was the chief who would hear the case and deliver a judgment that had to be seen as fair and final. As the council meeting draws to a close, the decision is made. The men begin to disperse, their low conversations feeding as they return to their own family yurts. The great fire is banked, its fierce light softening to a gentle, pulsing glow of embers. The chief remains for a moment, staring into the fading flames, the weight of his people's future resting squarely on his shoulders. His power is not held in a scepter, but in the trust of the men now walking away into the darkness. Tomorrow, he must prove again that their trust is well placed. The steppe is a harsh judge, and leadership, like life itself, is a constant, unending test. The camp settles into a deep quiet, the decisions of the night now woven into the fabric of tomorrow's journey.
Night falls, dangers, nightmares, and the ancient sky. As families retreat into the muffled warmth of their yurts, the camp itself changes its posture. It draws inward, like a creature curling up against the cold. The herds are gathered as close as possible, their soft shuffling and occasional lowing sounds of uneasy comfort in the dark. The dogs, who may have dozed in the afternoon sun, are now alert, their ears twitching at every unfamiliar sound carried on the wind. And on the perimeter of the camp, in the deep shadows beyond the glow of any single family's small fire, the sentries take their posts.
Their duty was one of quiet, intense listening. They were the eyes and ears of the sleeping tribe, their senses tuned to the subtle language of the nocturnal steppe. A snapped twig, the nervous whinny of a horse, the sudden silence of the night insects. Any of these could signal the approach of the two great dangers of the darkness, beasts and men.
The most constant threat came from the wolf packs that roamed the vast grasslands. The howl of a distant pack, a mournful and chilling chorus rising and falling on the wind, was a familiar sound. It was not a cry that brought immediate terror, but a respected reminder of the wildness that surrounded their small island of humanity. It was a sound that prompted a mother to check on her sleeping children, a herdsman to whisper a prayer for his animals. A lone wolf might be driven off, but a large, hungry pack in the dead of winter was a formidable enemy, capable of picking off stray livestock or even a lone, unwary human. The sentries knew to watch for the glint of eyes in the darkness just beyond the edge of their vision. The other danger was more cunning. The night was the domain of the scout, the spy, and the small, swift raiding party. A rival tribe, seeking to steal horses or settle a score, would use the cloak of darkness for their approach. The Scythian warrior was a master of stealth, able to move as silently as a shadow across the terrain. A century's failure to detect such a threat could mean waking to the sounds of chaos and alarm, of prized horses being driven off into the gloom. The tension of this possibility was a constant, humming beneath the surface of the camp's repose. Every shadow could hold a man.
But the dangers were not only external. For the Scythians, the darkness was never truly empty. It was a time when the veil between the physical world and the spirit world grew thin. The winds were thought to carry not just dust, but whispers from restless ghosts. Malevolent spirits, banished by the light of the sun, were free to wander the land, seeking to bring misfortune or sickness to the unwary.
This belief infused the night with a deep psychological dread. People wore amulets of bone or bronze, etched with protective symbols, even in their sleep. A shaman might perform a small ritual at dusk, chanting to ward off evil and appease the spirits of the land on which they camped. Nightmares were not mere phantoms of the mind. They were considered visitations, ominous messages from the other side, or even spiritual attacks. To wake up screaming from a terrible dream was a cause for genuine alarm, an event the whole family would take seriously, perhaps seeking the shaman's counsel in the morning to interpret its meaning and perform a cleansing.
Sleep, for the Scythian, was an act of trust. Trust in the centuries, trust in the dogs, trust in the strength of their community, and trust in the protective power of their amulets and rituals to see them safely through to the dawn. And yet, the night was not only a time of fear and danger, it was also a time of profound and unparalleled beauty. Imagine yourself for a moment stepping out from the warmth of a yurt into the cold, still air. You lift your head, and you see the sky as they saw it every clear night of their lives. Without a single competing light for hundreds of miles, the cosmos revealed itself in its full, staggering glory. It was a dome of pure, undiluted black, scattered with diamond dust so thick it seemed you could breathe it in. The Milky Way was not a faint, hazy band, but a brilliant, textured river of light. What they may have called the Spirit Path or the Sky River, flowing from one end of the horizon to the other. The stars did not twinkle. They shone with a fierce, steady intensity. They would not have known the Greek and Roman constellations we see today. They had their own celestial map, their own myths and heroes written in the patterns of light. Perhaps they saw a great stag in place of Orion, its antlers spreading across the winter sky. Perhaps the Big Dipper was the celestial wagon, forever circling the one fixed point in the heavens. This star, our Polaris, they might have called the sky nail or the golden peg, the immovable point around which their entire world, both physical and spiritual, revolved. This sky was their calendar and their compass. They could read the coming of the seasons by the slow procession of the star patterns. It was the ultimate guide for their migrations, a map of divine permanence laid over a shifting, impermanent world. To be a Scythian was to know the night sky intimately,
to feel its vastness not as an oppressive void, but as a familiar, living ceiling to their world. The night was a dual reality. On the ground, it was a place of tangible danger and whispered fears, where survival depended on vigilance and ritual. But above, it was a source of unchanging order, a spectacle of sublime beauty that connected them to the grand, eternal rhythms of the universe. As the camp slept, huddled together on the dark earth, they did so under a canopy of silent, blazing light, a constant reminder of their small place in a very, very large cosmos. And in that balance, between the danger below and the glory above, they found their own kind of peace, drifting into dreams under the watchful eyes of the century and the silent, ancient stars. This process applied to all major decisions, matters of war and peace, alliances and rivalries, and the administration of justice. If a man was killed, it was before the chief and his council that the blood feud would be negotiated, with weregild, a payment in horses or cattle often used to prevent a cycle of revenge from tearing the tribe apart. If livestock were stolen, it was the chief who would hear the case and deliver a judgment that had to be seen as fair and final. As the council meeting draws to a close, the decision is made. The men begin to disperse, their low conversations feeding as they return to their own family yurts. The great fire is banked, its fierce light softening to a gentle, pulsing glow of embers. The chief remains for a moment, staring into the fading flames, the weight of his people's future resting squarely on his shoulders. His power is not held in a scepter, but in the trust of the men now walking away into the darkness. Tomorrow, he must prove again that their trust is well placed. The steppe is a harsh judge, and leadership, like life itself, is a constant, unending test. The camp settles into a deep quiet, the decisions of the night now woven into the fabric of tomorrow's journey.